Live Jump with Nita Bradley.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Live Talk with Benita Bradley. I am your host, Benita Bradley, and I hope you guys have had a wonderful day. Listen, we are still praying for those in Texas and other areas that are snowed in and that are really having a hard time with this horrible weather. Uh, we know it's a bit much to deal with, but please know that we're praying for you. You are in our thoughts, and we wish we were closer so we could do more to help you guys out. So, with that being said, again, I hope everyone is being safe. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you found a way to stay warm. So, again, thank you for tuning in. And tonight we're going to talk about how do we hear things? How do we hear things? Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you were trying to explain something to them and they heard something totally different from what you were saying, and then you try to figure out, well, how did we wind up in such a huge disagreement to the point that you're no longer hearing me, I'm no longer hearing you, and now we're just kind of at each other like this. Well, sometimes our psychological state of mind uh, can influence how we hear things. You may disagree with that. You may agree. Some of you may say, well, yeah, that's happened to me before. And some of you may be able to say, well, yeah, I've experienced that my own self. I've heard things the wrong way when I wasn't quite in the right state of mind, or when I wasn't really happy that day, or I wasn't feeling it that day. You know, they were trying to tell me a joke and I took it personally because I thought they were actually talking about me. But then I found out later it was just a joke and it had nothing to do with me. Sometimes our state of mind plays a lot into how we hear things when people are trying to communicate with us. I know for me, it has happened a lot. You know, I have to be honest, it really has happened to me. I can notice, like, sometimes I sit down and I just take inventory, and maybe this will help you guys out too. So sometimes I sit down and I take inventory of myself. And I go, okay, now you could have responded to this one differently. That right there, you didn't have to respond at all. That right there, you let that take you too far out of your character. You know, that right there, you need to rethink how you deal with that. So, with that being said, now the onus is no longer on the person communicating to me. The onus now is on me to get myself in a better position so I can hear properly what someone is trying to communicate to me. Because it's not all the time that someone will communicate to you something nefarious. You know, sometimes we just take things that way. I know I am guilty of it. I still do it from time to time. And then I have to go back and apologize and say, okay, listen, this is what I thought you meant when you said XYZ. And when you said that, you know, I took it like this, you know. So, but a lot of times it's not what that person meant. How do you determine what somebody meant versus what we hear? What factor comes into play that determines their words leaving their mouth, gets into the atmosphere, and enters our ears? I often wonder what happens in between the transmission of their words leaving their mouth, coming through the atmosphere, because words fill the atmosphere, coming through the atmosphere, entering my ear. Something happens in that transitional period from one person to another. And if my state of mind is not clear, if I'm not psychologically or emotionally clear, you know, it's easy for me to take it the wrong way. It's easy for me to misinterpret what that person could have meant. It could have been very well something positive. But if my mind was in a negative place, guess what? Everything they say, I'm going to hear it in negative connotations. Why? Because the negative is going on in my mind. And so, what we have to do, we have to make sure when we get ready to communicate with each other, we not only have to make sure that we say what we're trying to say in a right way, but we need to also make sure we're hearing correctly. Because sometimes it's not so much about what the person says, it's sometimes it's about how we hear and how we interpret what's being said. So by the time we hear it and then we interpret it, we can either make a good decision or a bad decision based on where we are psychologically. And this is still part of our series of the functioning smile. We're still talking about depression and anxiety and how to deal with things when you're psychologically in a different frame of mind. I think it's very important that we go here today because we're in a pandemic, and I saw someone post it today, and they were saying how they didn't have any lights or water or what have you. So they were using the outside of their home because it was so cold and the snow, they were using that as a freezer. Well, I didn't see anything wrong with it. But someone that might be going through that didn't find it very amusing. So that person was offended. And I can understand them being offended. However, it was not the other person's intention to offend anybody, you know. And I would imagine it's because that person's state of mind right now is kind of like this. You know, you got snow, you don't have any heat, you don't have any water, you don't have any electricity. You know, you got to worry about your food going bad, the roads are blocked. You guys are not accustomed to driving in inclement weather like that. So it's a lot of different emotions that we're dealing with. And even if you take away the snow factor, we still have the pandemic to deal with. We're still, you know, coming out of 4 years of, okay, let me just breathe. 4 years of torture, seems like, you know, and you guys know what I'm talking about. So now everybody has to regroup. We got to call ourselves back in together. We got to call our thoughts back in, and we got to learn how to not take things so personal. And I'm going to tell you, I'll be the first to confess. It's easy for me to take things personally sometimes, even if I have to go back and apologize. I will, because I know I'm prone to be in a space or in a state of mind that would cause me to hear something that was not intended in the line of communication. And I know some of you are too. So this evening, I want to talk to you. I'm going to be talking to you from one of my books. I'm super excited to talk to you tonight about can your psychological state influence how you hear? Not what you hear, but how you hear it. Let's do this. Someone walks up to you and says, "Oh, that's a nice shirt you have on." If you're not in the right state of mind, you might say, "So what's wrong with my shirt? Are you trying to be funny?" Well, I just said it was a nice shirt, but it's the way you said it. You said it like I ain't supposed to have nice things. And there's a rip there in communication from someone giving you a compliment. And 9 times out of 10, when you go off on somebody like that, it has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening in that moment. There is something else internal working in you, causing you to hear what you hear and hear how you hear. You heard the right thing. So I want to back up and say it's not always about what you hear, it's about how you hear. All right? How you hear it. And so I want to start tonight in one of my books. Tonight we're going to be talking from my book, Don't Take It Personal, Keys to Better Communication. I don't know if you guys can see that real good. How to improve our communication skills, especially with listening, voice tone, and more. You can get this book right now on Amazon.com, or you can order your autograph copy at BenitaBradleyMinistries.org. All right, I'll tell you again later, and I'll have the information on the screen for you. Okay, so I want to talk to you tonight about, it may not be you. It just may not even be you. It could be something else going on. We don't know from day to day. Let's be honest. You can live with somebody on a day-to-day basis and still not fully understand or comprehend everything that that person goes through. And husband and wives go through it, parents, roommates, people just go through stuff. And then when we're going through our go through, communication sometimes is the first thing to break down. Okay. And so I have a lot of little skits in my book that you would really enjoy. So again, I want you to get the book. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about Mr. Viscero, Mr. Chokovan, and what's the other guy's name? I wrote the book. I really did write the book, guys. Mr. Viscero, Mr. Chokovan, and Mr. Greg, and Mr. Healy. All right. All right. So here's the story. Mr. Viscero purchased a new boat over the weekend, and he couldn't wait to get to work to tell the guys. Monday morning, as he entered into the office, he ran into Mr. Chokovan. Mr. Viscero proceeded with exuberant joy to tell Mr. Chokovan about his new boat and how it was such a blessing that he was able to purchase the boat at such a great price. You following me so far? Later, a few other gentlemen from their team joined the conversation. The guys seemed to be having a great time discussing the boat, how fast it could go, how many people the boat could seat, and of course, the many features of the boat. Naturally, Mr. Viscero had pictures of the boat to accompany his story. I'm sure he was thinking to himself, this is a great Monday morning. So in the midst of this joyous occasion, Mr. Greg from accounting comes into the room and joins the conversation. However, he doesn't seem as impressed as does the other gentleman. Actually, Mr. Greg seems a bit put off by all the ramblings about this boat. He feels as though Mr. Viscero is just showing off, and he doesn't hide his feelings as well as he thinks he does. So, he's just kind of standing in the background, just kind of looking. In his apparent displeasure, he excuses himself from the conversation. His golfing buddy, Mr. Healy, follows him back to their office, hence the conversation. Mr. Healy, hey, buddy, what was that about? Mr. Greg, what do you mean? Mr. Healy says, well, it seemed you were a bit put off and even disgusted with Mr. Viscero's boat. I mean, what's going on with you? Mr. Greg says, nothing, man. Y'all just acting like that's the first boat ever built. I'm surprised at you, of all people. Mr. Healy says, man, what's wrong with you? I was just looking at the pictures and rejoicing with the other fellows. It is a very nice boat. And Mr. Viscero is a nice guy. What's the deal, man? Mr. Greg says, oh, no deal, just drop it. I'm tired of talking about it anyway. He begins to grumble. A bunch of grown men standing around laughing and talking about something that's not even theirs. Mr. Healy says, okay, buddy, okay, I'll leave you alone. Apparently, you got something weighing heavily on your mind. Mr. Healy leaves the room. Later on in the day, we find out that Mr. Greg had just received the news that his home was heading into foreclosure. His aggravation really had little to do with Mr. Viscero's boat or Mr. Healy's line of questioning. However, he was taking out his frustrations on everyone that came in his path. Although his intentions were not to offend anyone, guess what? The results were the same. So now, again, I'm reading to you from my book, Don't Take It Personal, Keys to Better Communication, ways to improve our communication skills, especially with listening, voice, tone, and more. You can head over to Amazon.com and get your copy, or you can get an autographed copy at BenitaBradleyMinistries.org. All right? So let me get in the comments with you guys. Let's see what you say. Yes, it does. Elder Katrina said it starts in your mind. Let me tell you something. Everything we do, everywhere we go, everything we eat, everything we watch, everything we hear, it starts in our mind. That is a fact. You can be, let me give you, for instance, then we're going to get back to the book. You can be going to the grocery store for two items. And by the time you leave, why you come out with a whole basket full of stuff? You went in there for two items because when you got in there, they had a whole bunch of stuff on sale, and your mind told you, well, you need that. Oh, go ahead and get that while it's on sale. So our mind is like our guiding force, okay? That was a good point, Elder Katrina. Thank you for that. So listen, it is in these instances we see how the wrong communication at the wrong time can be perceived as a personal offense to someone who has no insight of what the other person is dealing with. Many times, we are not so quick to share our personal business with others, even those we deem close to us. Consequently, when we have bad days, it comes out through our communicate. And as I stated earlier, regardless of the intent, the offense is still the same. I'm sure Mr. Greg didn't mean to be rude about the boat. I'm sure he was not aware that he was sitting over there with a scouring look on his face as all the other guys enjoyed talking to Mr. Viscero, looking at the pictures of his boat. I'm sure Mr. Greg was not aware of his off-putting attitude. He probably was not aware that his energy was even off-putting that day. He just felt like he had a lot on his mind, and for him to be in the middle of losing his home and here this man goes buying a boat, this has nothing to do with this. But yet, Mr. Greg is affected by it all, and he begins to take it out against everybody in the office. And because Mr. Healy is his golfing buddy, he's the only one that thought enough to kind of follow him back to their office in the county to see what was kind of going on. And even when he did that, he still was in that same state of mind, still in his emotions, still in his feelings, so that now he started an argument with his golfing buddy, with his good friend. They golf together, they work together, they're good friends. So I want to ask you a question. Let's see what Pastor Dillard says. Sometimes we can project upon others our own unresolved issues. So we don't respond to what we are hearing, but to our own unresolved emotional issues. And that's exactly what we're talking about tonight. Can your psychological state of mind influence how you hear? If you're in a bad attitude or in a bad mood, and someone, is kind of jovial and joking around and being playful, you don't want no parts of that. Because you want to stay in the state of mind that you're in so that you can feel how you want to feel. And oftentimes, the people that you are projecting all of these emotions off on, they're innocent bystanders. They don't have a clue what you're going through. They don't know what's going on at your home. They have no idea what you just came through. They don't have anything that you got a bad doctor's report. They don't have understanding that your bank account is overdrawn. They don't know these things about you. And quite frankly, it's not their business. However, what is their business is that they be allowed to be around someone with good positive energy. They don't have to succumb to every emotional and psychological state that we find ourselves in. Am I making myself clear? And so what has to happen is we have to learn how to put our words into motion when something is wrong. So I remember having a conversation, and in the field of psychology, one of the words you don't use is crazy. And you can tell a joke, and it could be about something, and somebody say, "Ooh, child, that's so crazy, you crazy." And someone that's dealing with a mental health issue would easily be offended. Elder Katrina says it's your own self issues, and so we begin to take it out on others. That's exactly what I'm saying. So now no one knows that you're going through what you're going through. They were just making a joke, trying to lighten the mood and have a little fun, but you so bent out of shape now. You completely bent out of shape, but you have not communicated to anybody that you're going through something. So then, how are all these people that surround you supposed to know how to entreat you? They don't know how to handle you. They don't know what's proper or what's improper to say to you. Why? Because only thing they know, you just walk around with this chip on your shoulder most of the time, and you haven't said anything to anybody to let us know anything different. So now, people, you just have this reputation for just being rude, you know? And a lot of times people come off as rude when they are in a bad emotional or psychological headspace because they fail to communicate. I'm not saying that you got to get a bullhorn and say, "Hey, I'm not feeling it today," but let somebody know. Don't be this tidal wave that comes and just wash everybody out for the day, and then you have this feeling, "Oh, nobody won't talk to me today." And well, every time somebody says something, you bite their head off. So I want us to learn how to do better at managing our psychological state, at managing our emotions. And here's my thing: when you know you have a problem or an issue, it's so hard for us to just be honest sometimes. And you know how we tell the first lie. "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm fine. I'm blessed and highly favored." I wish we could be honest when somebody say, "Oh, how you doing?" Child, listen. If I could afford to stay home, y'all would not see me at this job this week because I'm sick of you, I'm sick of her, and I'm sick of all this work being piled up on my desk. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could just be that honest sometimes without people getting hurt in their feelings or people getting offended? But we can't. We're a society of people that have been taught and trained and programmed mentally, psychologically to lie, because a lot of times we're not doing well, we're not doing fine, we're not feeling blessed and highly favored. But those are some of the more common things we say when someone asks us, "How are you today?" We automatically go for what's familiar, what's common versus what's true. All right? Let's get back into the book a little bit more. Again, we're talking about uh, don't take it personal, keys to better communication. You can go over to Amazon.com and pick up this book, or you can go to my website. We do have a store that's open 24/7. You can order your book, and this one will come autographed for you at BenitaBradleyMinistries.org. All right. So I want to give a shout out tonight um, to one of my sponsors, Joy Gilchrist. and she shares all of the videos. She provides me with all this beautiful jewelry that you guys always see me wear, and I love it, love it, love it. I'm going to put her information in the comment section. I love everything she sends me. Let's see if I got this the right way. Can you guys see that? Ooh, that's beautiful. Okay. And here's the bracelet. Thank you, Joy. I'm going to put her information in the comment section after the show, so you guys will know how to follow her and find her on Facebook and on Instagram. And I think she has a website up now also. Okay. All right. So let's look at the book a little bit more. I got some good stuff in this book, if I do say so myself. All right. So listen to this. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with someone and it seemed as if they were being rude, disinterested, or perhaps even just distant from you? I've been on both ends of that. I've tried to have a conversation with someone and felt that, and I've been the one that someone tried to have a conversation with, and I was the one feeling distant, you know? What was your reaction? I want you to think about my questions. What was your reaction? Were you offended? Or do you simply chuck it up to that person's lack of attention? Oh, they probably weren't paying me no attention. Either way, most people are offended when the communication process does not go as planned. I know I am. So here's a confession. I was once that person. Anytime someone would say the wrong thing or behave in a way I felt was uncalled for, I would take great offense. I later learned not to take everything so personal. Why? Because most of what was offending me, listen to this, really was not about me at all. I'll say that again. I later learned not to take everything so personal because most of what was offending me really was not about me at all. And sometimes it's just not about you. It has nothing to do with you. Listen to this. Some people deal with their inner issues by randomly offending outward innocent bystanders. You know, you just chopping everybody head off. Everybody, you like a bull in a china shop. Everybody that comes in your path, you just knock them down. You're knocking people down like bowling pins, you know. It's like being shot by friendly fire. Friendly fire is an attack by a force or a non-enemy while attempting to attack, listen to this, the real enemy. We are not each other's enemy. If you're a husband and wife, business partners, friends, what have you, that's not your enemy. That's your friend. But sometimes in this realm of communication, and depending on where we are psychologically, we wind up killing one another, okay, with friendly fire. So again, friendly fire is an attack by a force of a non-enemy while attempting to attack the real enemy. Yes, there is a real enemy, but the person you're trying to communicate may not be that person, may not be that enemy, okay? So this occurs when the person has either misidentified the target, which is you, as hostile, or it may be due to error or inaccuracy. The unfortunate and probably the most hurting or damaging aspect of being wounded by friendly fire is that the person firing rarely comes back to their victims when they realize they have fired at a non-hostile target. You want me to say that again? Okay, I will. The unfortunate and probably most hurting or damaging aspect of being wounded by friendly fire is that the person firing rarely comes back to their victim or their victims when they realize they have fired at a non-hostile target. So here's what winds up happening. They'll leave their victims wounded and bloody, and they carry on as if nothing has ever happened. And here you are, you over here wounded and bloody and crying, and you're trying to get them to see you. This is what you did. This is what you said. This is how you make me feel. They're not going to hear that because it depends on their state of mind. All right. So listen to this. You're probably not going to like this part, but here's the truth. This happens mostly in marriages and in church relationships. Pastors and leaders, we're guiltier of wounding by friendly fire than are the sheep. The inability to go back and bandage the wounds of those who we have wounded is a clear and apparent indication that although you may be called to preach, you may not necessarily be called to shepherd. Shepherds then don't usually wound the sheep. That position is customarily reserved for the ravenous wolves. Okay? So if you are a pastor, make sure that your mental self is in a good place. Your psychological self is in a good place so that when you do get up to minister to the people, you're not just out there gnawing at the sheep and biting everybody's heads off because you got something personal going on within you. Okay? Here's something I would do. After I would examine my response to what was said, I would compare it to their behavior. And I realized that there was something greater or more pressing going on with that person. Neither their approach nor their response was really about me. It was more about something they had not revealed. And a lot of times you can go through life and you can just be hell on earth. And no one will understand you until you say, you know what? I'm going through something. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have taken that out on you. I was wrong. But how often do we hear that? How often do we get a confession of being in a different state of mind? You don't know. People, we smile. We that's why I named this series The Functioning Smile. We smile, we go through it all, and then someone comes along and we literally bite their heads off. What did I say wrong? Well, you said, no, that's not what I said. Yes, you did. I didn't mean it that way, but that's the way I took it, and then there goes a friendship. There goes a marriage. There goes a business partnership. There goes a member and a pastor at odds. We really got to take care of our mental and our psychological state, because if we don't, we're going to be people that never learn how to communicate properly with each other. And communication is just not about what I say or how I say it, when I say it, the tone of my voice. Communication goes further beyond that. Communication also involves how you hear me, what you hear, how did you process what you heard. All of that is communication. However, all of that also will depend on our current state of mind. Because if we're not in a good, healthy place, in a good, healthy state of mind, I don't care what people say to you, everything will be offensive. Why? Because offense is now living in your mind. Well, how do you know that? It comes out in your behavior. It comes out in the way you talk to people. It comes out in your body language. Even your unspoken words can tell us that offense is resting on the inner parts of you. And when people see that, let me tell you something. I don't know about you all, but I don't like to be around unpleasant people. I just don't. I don't like to be around people that are not pleasant. I don't like to be around people that does not have some positive energy. I don't like to be around people who grumble and fuss and complain about every little thing. It's too cold in here. It's too warm in here. Why we got to go through this part? What's the purpose of this? You just no 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 no. You complain about everything. Me personally, I can't take all of that. I can't take it. I like things to go smooth, like butter, baby. I like my communication. I want to understand you. I want you to understand me. I don't always have to be right, but I do have to be heard. I want you to hear my heart when I'm talking to you. And a lot of times, we don't get to that point in communication because I got so much going on psychologically. You got so much going on psychologically. And before I even finish saying what I'm saying, you're ready to respond off of what you think I'm saying. And so there are times I'm ready to respond before I even let you finish saying what you're saying. So now we both got a lot of psychological stuff going on in our heads. And guess what? When that happens, I don't care what you say. Well, I'm a good communicator. We're no longer communicating. We're just filling the atmosphere with empty words because you're not hearing me. I'm not understanding you. Therefore, communication has not been mastered. We don't master communication until we both walk away from the table with an understanding of what we're talking about. We don't master communication until we both can walk away with some degree of understanding, some degree of agreement, some degree of this is how we're going to work this out. Something has to evolve. Something has to come from our time of talking and not just words filling up the atmosphere. You understand what I'm saying? So when we consider, are we hearing what that person really said? Well, how do we determine that? The first thing we have to do, guys, listen, if you don't do anything else, make sure you are in a healthy headspace. Make sure you are in a healthy emotional space. Make sure you're in a healthy psychological space, because if you're not, it doesn't matter what people say. Everything is going to be offensive to you. I know that. I've been there. I dwelt there a long, long time. It took me a long time to come from that place. It took me a long time to be able to say, well, wait a minute. Okay, say that again, because it sounds like you said this. But did you mean this to mean that? Or so now I've learned to stop, think about it. They couldn't have meant this. They couldn't have meant that. So we got to be fair to each other. If we learn to just stop for a minute and ask questions, be like, okay, Benita, give that person the benefit of the doubt. Ask them what they meant before you assume what they meant. You know what I'm saying? I have to talk to myself sometimes, a lot, because it's easy for me to get into a headspace to where I don't want to hear nothing you got to say. So anything you try to say to me, it's already offensive to me. So sometimes I have to get into my own headspace. Let's see. Pastor Gillett said talking at each other. Yep, that's it. Talking at each other versus talking to each other and listening empathetically. Absolutely terrific point. Terrific. And that's what we need to start doing. Because if I'm talking, if I say, this is a gray sweater, but you say, no, it's purple. No, this sweater is gray. No, but it's purple. So you're going to tell me what color my sweater is. Now I'm just telling you I see purple. All of that for what? When all you had to do was say, oh, that's a beautiful sweater. But it depends on how our mind is working. So let's try that conversation a different way. Oh, that's a beautiful sweater. Oh, thank you. I really like the colors gray and purple and white. I got it because I like all the pretty colors in it. Totally different conversation, totally different mindset going on. We got to understand how we hear depends on what's going on up here at that time. So for me, when I'm not quite in a good headspace, I kind of shy away from everybody because I don't want to be easily offended. Watch this. And I don't want to easily offend. So when I'm in a certain headspace, or when I'm feeling certain emotions, I'm in a certain psychological space, I try not to have too much communication with people. Why? Because I'm really aware of how my state of mind, my state of being influences how I hear things. Now, you may not be at the point where you're ready to admit that. And listen, that's okay. That's really okay. However, at some point, we're going to have to take responsibility not only for what we say, but for what we hear and also how we hear things. How do you hear things when someone is simply trying to communicate a point to you? Are you easily offended? Do you really want to let someone else have something to say? How do you hear? How do you hear what you hear if you're always in a bad headspace? Let me give you another little story right quick, and then I'm just about done for tonight um, because at the last minute, I had a last minute doctor's appointment. So I had to run over there, run back home just in time, enough time to be with you guys on this evening. Listen, one of the principal keys in this book, again, um, don't take it personal. Go over to Amazon.com and get it. If you have a Prime membership, you'll get it in 2 days. All right. Okay. So one of the keys in this book, I talk about ask the right questions and accept the responses. Once the communication process has begun, it's imperative that you understand what the other person is saying. If there is a lack of understanding, watch this. Be sure, this is what I had to learn to do. I'm talking to Benita. Be sure, Benita, you ask questions that will lead you to a better understanding of what's being said. Sometimes we can get so in a hurry till we are guilty of not giving one another the benefit of doubt. Okay. I work on me, Lord. Um, you have to ask the right questions when you need to have clarity. Well, what's the right question? Okay. Did you mean to say XYZ? Because what I heard you say was this, but I'm thinking you probably didn't mean that. That's probably just the way I took it. Do you ever think that we'll get to that point where we stop ourselves, take responsibility for how we hear, what we hear, and just stop and ask some questions before we get offended in the friendship, in the marriage, in the relationship, go from this church to that church, walk out on a good job, you haven't secured another one? Do you think we'll get to that point where we can stop and start asking some of these questions? Asking the right questions could very well alter how the communique is received. Again, I'm talking to Benita. Girl, sometimes you just got to slow your mind down and ask the right questions. That will settle a lot of tension during communication. Okay. Um, Listen to this. I believe asking questions will eliminate or lessen the amount of offenses that occur during communication. How many of you agree with that? It is so easy to misunderstand or misinterpret another person's meaning behind what he or she is saying. It's almost as if you have to think for that other person in order to interpret what's being said. Since you and I cannot think for the next person, the next best thing to understanding someone else's words is what? Understanding their words, thoughts, or feelings is to what? Ask questions. I would rather ask questions and have a matter resolved than to lose someone that's very dear in my life, someone that has proven very valuable in my life, someone that I have a future with in my life, someone that has been good for me during my lifetime, someone that has pulled out of me some things that were there. I mean, good things, you know what I'm saying? Good things I didn't know, gifts and talents and perhaps skills I didn't even know that were lying dormant in there. So sometimes we got to be careful. We don't always want to offend people because we don't know a lot of times the reason why God allowed people to come into our lives. We don't know. I know there are a lot of people with prophetic gifts and all of that, but let's just be honest, we don't know everything. Okay? And I certainly don't want to um, be guilty of that anymore. And no, I can't think for the next person. But what I can start doing is asking questions for clarity. That's what I can start doing. And my prayer is that you will start doing the same thing as well. If there is something you don't understand and you're in a communication, exchange with somebody, stop for a second. Because sometimes what we hear and how we hear has little to do with what's being said and more to do with how we're hearing it because of where we are emotionally, psychologically. Think about Mr. Greg. Think about how he was just, he almost seemed like he was jealous of Mr. Visceral's boat and everybody standing around watching him with this scour on his face while all the other gentlemen in the office is rejoicing. Mr. Greg seems like he's a hater. But really, what was going on with him had nothing to do with Mr. Visceral, with his new boat, with his office, none of that. What was really going on with Mr. Greg was he was going through foreclosure. And sometimes, I want you to catch this, sometimes it's hard to rejoice for other people when your life seems to be jacked up. I'll say that one more time. It's hard to rejoice for other people when your life seems to be jacked up. But you have no idea what that other person had to go through to get to where they are. All you know is that things seem to be not going well for you, and things seem to be working out for this person over here. The truth of the matter is, unless you have a conversation with people, you have no idea what it took for people to get to where they are. And based on your own state of mind, based on your own emotional state, based on your own psychological state, it's how you're going to see other people. So if you're seeing other people and you're always hating on other people, oh, they don't have to keep posting all of that. They don't have to do that. People over here hungry and they over here buying stupid stuff. Well, you don't know what those people have been through. You have no idea what other people go through to get to where they are or to have what they have. And here's our problem. We would rather sit back, roll our eyes, side eye people, spread gossip and rumors before we go and say, hey, I noticed you into X, Y, and Z. I've been wanting to do that for a while. You think you got time to teach me how to do that? We don't do that. We got too much pride. We got too much pride to say we don't know. But if you don't know, you just don't know. And then it becomes incumbent upon you. You have to be able to look in the mirror and say to yourself, are you a whole person? Or is there some deficiency in how you process things that you hear? And a lot of times we won't be honest enough with ourselves to say, you know what? that last thing I went through, it really kind of, mm, it did something to me. I probably need to talk to somebody about this. And you guys know I'm a very big proponent of therapy and counseling, you know, and it's no shame. It's no shame. I would rather you know that I have a therapist and that I see a therapist than for you to know that everywhere I go, I leave people offended. Every time somebody talks to me, they walk away with a bad feeling about me. Nobody likes being around me, you know. So I would rather for you to know my truth than for you to forge an opinion on me based on my state of mind at that time. And the only way you can really deal with your own state of mind, first of all, you have to admit. You got to learn to admit there were things I went through in my life. Some of these things left me broken. So now I don't trust nobody. I don't trust anybody. You know, some of the stuff I went through, you know, left me feeling kind of like this. So now I don't let nobody help me with nothing. I don't take nothing from nobody. You know, because last time I let somebody help me, they talked about me. So now you got trust issues with anybody, everybody that look like they want to help you. Well, I was thinking, you know, we was going to the store. Did you want anything? No, I don't want nothing. When I get ready for something, I can go to the store and buy what I need. You sitting there like, well, I didn't mean it like that. You know, I wasn't trying. You know, you thinking you being helpful, but because of that person's state of mind, anything you say or do is going to be taken the wrong way. Because it's not about what they heard; it's about how they heard what you said. You said from a genuine place, "Hey, we're about to go into the store. You want anything?" But because they were so in a different space psychologically and emotionally, they heard, I know you want something from the store because you ain't got no money. And then you'll be like, that's not what I meant. I just meant, you know, it's no big thing. If I'm going right to the store, if you need something, I'll bring it back for you. You know, no strings attached. And it's a shame that we have to put all these disclaimers on communication before we are able to have a really good, you know, conversation with one another. Because you're distrustful, I'm distrustful, you know, you've been hurt, I've been hurt. So now it's so hard to communicate with people that are not aware of their own state of being, their own state of mind. Um, in a couple of, let me see, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, I think that's the 24th. I think it's the 24th, not this Sunday coming, but the following Sunday. We're going to have a special guest on, and we're going to learn about getting, um, about meditating and getting centered and coming to a quiet place within ourselves so we can hear ourselves. Because sometimes it takes other people to point out things in us that we don't see. I know I was guilty of that. And you couldn't tell me nothing about Benita, you know. And then one day, my kids was teasing me about my eyes. Thank you. It's the 28th. Thank you. So on the 28th, um, we'll have a special guest. I really want you guys to tune in. Um, I want you to tune in to every show, but particularly, or especially when we have guests, because they always bring us really good information. Okay. So a lot of times, what I had to learn, this is Benita, what I had to learn, I had to come to myself and say, you took that the wrong way, not because that person said it the wrong way, but it's how you perceived it. It's how you heard what they said. And sometimes I have to tell Benita, stop, just stop for a minute because you're getting riled up. Why don't you just ask that person, is this what you meant? Because this is how I took it. 9 times out of 10, people will say, Oh, I'm sorry, that's how you took it. That's not what I mean. If you don't have those kind of people in your life, get a new group of friends around you, okay? Get some new people around you. If you don't have people in your life that will give you room to grow, give you room to make those mistakes, give you room to have those off days when you're not your best psychologically, when you're not your best emotionally, when you're not your best mentally. If you don't have people in your life that will give you a pass every now and then, you need to change your circle of people. Okay, just let me tell you that, because good people in your life will understand that we all have our off days sometimes. We all have our emotional days sometimes. We all have days that we're in some kind of headspace that may not be healthy for us. And no matter what anybody says, we're going to hear what we hear, and we're going to hear it how we hear it. And until we learn to stop, just stop and ask questions, we will never be able to have the perfect level of communication with each other, because you're going to always be offended by something I say, because that's how you're going to hear it. I'm going to always be offended by something you say. Why? Because that's how I'm going to hear it. It depends on what's going on with us in that moment of communication. And so that's why I decided, and I thought this part was really important to to add to our series of the functioning smile. We're talking about how we smile while dealing with depression and anxiety. And sometimes our psychological state of mind has a great influence. Pastor John says sometimes we need someone else or others to help us to see in ourselves what we may be blind to. This is described in the therapy tool known as Johari's window. Okay, so um, that's good information. If you could send us more information on that, we'd certainly like to get into it. And so, we have leading questions. We have all different kind of questions: leading questions, open-ended questions, closed-ended questions. Just learn to stop for a second and ask questions. You know, and just learn how to let somebody help you um, along this journey. And because someone offers you help, they're not necessarily saying that you can't do what you're trying to do on your own. Sometimes people are just being nice. They don't mean anything. They don't want anything from you. They don't mean any harm. They don't have any strings attached. Sometimes people, and I had to learn this, guys. This is true. I had to learn. Sometimes people are just nice to you. Because I had a problem receiving help from people, because there was a time where my mental state was just everywhere. And I thought everybody wanted something, you know. And it wasn't until I really had to take inventory of myself and go get the help I needed to be able to process how I hear things. Now and every day, I'm becoming more and more aware, not so much of what you say, but more so of how I hear. And that's how come I make sure when I get to a certain place, you have to shut out all the noise around you. You have to learn how to get into a state of meditation. You know, sometimes when doing your meditation, you don't need no music on. You don't need your Bible tapes or stuff going. You just need silence. Silence. That's sometimes you just need silence. And I'm telling you, it works. It works. So next Sunday, the 28th, we're going to have a guest. And she is my cousin, and she is a marathon runner. She she's a fitness instructor. In fact, it was her, watching her, that I started doing yoga. And it has really helped me. It really helps me um, to learn how to calm myself when I feel myself going too far. There are some things I'm still learning, um, but it really helps. So she'll be here not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, and we're going to have a good time. We have some video clips of her teaching classes. We have video clips of her doing a hula hoop challenge. It's going to be amazing. So you want to make sure you tune in next Sunday. Also, I'll be watching tonight. So whoever shares the video, you'll get a copy of an autographed copy of my book sent to you. So I will be watching to see who shares the video from tonight. How about that? All right. So again, thank you for watching. And I really just want to keep this kind of short and sweet tonight because I really wanted you to hear from me, hear some of my experiences. Because sometimes we like to use other people as examples. I don't do that. I stopped doing that a long time ago. Instead of saying you, I learned to say, well, this is how I handle it. This is where I would make my mistakes. This is how I began to use myself as a demonstration because then it makes me more cognizant of the fact that there's still some work that Benita needs to do on herself. I can't focus so much on what people say, how they say it. What I can hone in on is how I receive what I heard. And a lot of times that's going to be based on the headspace I'm in at that particular time. And if I'm in a poor or negative headspace, everything people say, I'm going to hear it negatively. I will even hear positive things negatively if I'm always in a negative state of being. If I'm always in a negative headspace, my emotions are always negative and, kind of, what's the word, like saucy, and just not pleasant. Everything someone says to me, automatically offended. I'm automatically offended because I have not taken the time to make sure my mental state is healthy. So we'll work out, we do all of that. We go to church, we listen to the word, all of that stuff we do. But so many times we leave our mental state, our psychological state, our emotional state. We leave those in a whirlwind. You can work out and get your physical body in shape. You can hear the word of God to get your spiritual self in shape. How many times have you neglected your emotional state, your psychological state? How many times have you not worked that part of you out? And again, go see somebody. There's nothing wrong with going to see a therapist. Listen. Look around. Look around. We're past that. We're past being ashamed to say, I see a therapist. We're past being ashamed of saying, I've been treated for depression and anxiety. We're past being ashamed to say, yeah, I have PTSD. We're past all of that. We're past because we're better than that. And so now we need to get to the point to where we're not just looking into what's going on with us, but we're actively taking steps to get better so that when you say something to me, now I can hear it how you meant for me to hear it. I can hear it in its pleasantry because 9 times out of 10, now I know there are a few exceptions to the rules. There are some very rude and crude and non-caring people in the world. I got that. But for the most part, people are not generally trying to be offensive every time they talk to you. But every time someone talks to you, you're offended, It's not about what they're saying, it's about how you're hearing. And I want to encourage you, if this is you, if you found anything about tonight's um, show relevant to you, call your doctor, call a friend, call someone, and get help. If you feel like you're in this mental struggle, I'm going to put some numbers on the screen, and I want you to, I'm going to let them sit for a second so you can get a pen and paper and write these numbers down. The main thing I want for you tonight is to get the help you need. Uh, a lot of times we laughing and we joking, but when it comes to our mental health, there's nothing funny about neglecting our mental health, because how we think will control everything else about us. And if we are negative in our thinking, everything, even something good, we'll view it, we'll hear it, we'll process it as something negative or offensive. All right. So here's the numbers I want you to write down. All right. I hope you guys had enough time to write those numbers down. It is my prayer that you did, because the one thing I'm really passionate about, if there is any area of your life that is being controlled by your mental state, your psychological state, your emotional state, whatever you want to call it, I really want the best for you. I really want you to get the help you need. And a lot of times, the reason why we cannot communicate properly, it's not always about what someone said. Sometimes it's about how we heard what they said. It's about how we process the things that we go through on a day to day basis. People don't know what you go through. And truthfully, you don't have to tell anybody what you're going through. But what you do, what you are responsible for, you are responsible for how you communicate back to people. That's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to make sure that you are in a good headspace. You are in a good mental space. You're in a good psychological space. You're in a good emotional space, so that you're a good person to talk to. I don't care who you are, what you have. Everybody wants somebody to talk to. And you don't want somebody that's negative Nancy all the time, and pity party Peter. You don't want that all the time. Sometimes you just need some encouragement. You're going through some things and you mess around, you call the wrong person, and you trying to get stuff off your chest, and then they halfway listening to you, and before you know it, the conversation done flip. Now you listening to them talk about their problems, and now you both walk away with greater issues. So again, find someone professional to talk to. That's what I would advise. Get you a professional counselor. And particularly during this pandemic, there's so many counselors and therapists available, life coaches. I am a certified master life coach. Listen, if you go to my website, resilience lifecoachingnotaryllc.com. On my website, you can actually sign up for free life coaching sessions with me for a limited time only. So if I were you, I would get in where I fit in and get in on some of the free life coaching that I'm offering right now, because after a while, it won't be free no more. All right. So head over to my website. I'll put it in the comment section as well so you can have it when you're ready for it. And so, again, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. Tonight we talked from my book, Don't Take It Personal, Better Keys to Better Communication. You can get it from Amazon.com. If you are a Prime member, you'll get this book in 2 days. If you want an autograph copy, go over to BenitaBradleyMinistries.org and order you a copy. And those copies come directly from me. The difference is they are autographed. The ones you get from Amazon won't be autographed. Once you order from the website store, will be autographed. Okay? All right. So, guys, listen. And I'm watching whoever shares this video tonight. First one sharing this video, I'm going to send you this book free. All right? Our post office closed down. I guess I'm thinking maybe someone was positive for the virus there, but they closed our post office down, so I hadn't been able to get out to mail much. But do know, if you have won any books or any products, you will get them. Trust me on that. You will get your products, your books, or if you want anything, you will get it soon, okay? Just be patient with us as we go through this pandemic, just like everybody else, okay? But in the meantime and in between time, you can go over to Amazon.com and get you a copy of the book. This book right here is for whoever shares this show tonight. You will get yours free, all right? All right. So listen, guys, stay safe. Keep wearing your mask. Wash your hands. And keep social distancing. It's not over yet. We've made a lot of progress, but it's not over yet. I don't want you to get careless and just start running around doing everything and anything and not taking the proper precautions, not only to protect yourself, but also to protect your loved ones as well. Okay? Again, thank you for watching Live Talk with Benita Bradley. I have been your host, Benita Bradley, and it has been my absolute pleasure to talk to you tonight during our series, The Functioning Smile. Can your psychological state influence how you hear? My answer is an overwhelming yes. My psychological state of mind have many times influence how I heard something that someone else said, how I interpret it. And most of the time, I interpret it wrong. I heard it wrong. So guess what? I responded wrong. When we hear wrong, we're going to respond wrong. All right? I hope I said something to help you guys do better with communicating, but not just with communicating, but do better with taking care of our mental, emotional, psychological health. We can get as fine as wine in the summertime. You know, we can get as holy as the word itself. If we don't take care of our psychological self, we don't take care of our mental being, I will tell you this, we are still not being made whole. We're not being made whole. Okay? All right. So again, thank you for watching. And I will see you on Sunday around 7-ish. All right? Keep it locked right here. Don't forget, go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, hit your notifications, and we'll see you on Sunday. All right? Bye-bye.